Hey, hey, Em. Good morning, girl. So today is the 30th of January, 2019, and um, I'm your dad. I'm Miguel. I'm here right now in the present, and I'm happy to be here. So, see what's going on. Well, yesterday was a red letter day, a day that was notable. For me, I received in the mail my iPad Pro laptop computer, and I am really enjoying using it. Um, I was surprised to notice how intuitive that using the laptop was. It was I figured like the Mac OS or the iOS that I would struggle in some areas with launching apps or moving from program to program, but I had no trouble at all. It was completely intuitive. It works very much like my smartphone, my Android smartphone works. And all the software, all the everything worked out well. Like all the connectors, all the passwords, everything just sort of flowed together, and I made it happen. And so I'm really pleased with the device. I think it's fantastic. I haven't received my the keyboard folio yet in the mail. In fact, I've got to wait 2 weeks for that to show up at my place. Um, so that's going to be kind of a struggle to wait for that piece of equipment to arrive. But I'm really glad that I've got it. I'm already thinking about ways that I can use that tablet computer, new ways, helpful ways, ways that make my life more exciting and interesting. And man, it's great, great, great. And I also got to practice making memojis. I made my first memoji, and that's cool. And I can't wait to share my memoji with you. Probably in a couple days, I'll be text messaging you my memoji, and that'll be totally cool. I'm totally into doing that, and I want to explore the memoji technology and live and learn and express myself using memojis. I think that sounds like a lot of fun, and so I'm already geared up and excited to do it. Totally. Um, Tomorrow, I mean, today is another notable day. I've got my welding class tonight, and I'll be doing oxy-fuel welding, which is like using oxygen and acetylene gas. And it'll be a classroom setting where I will be with like 22 other students, and it will be welding away. I went to Home Depot yesterday and picked up my shade number 5 goggles from the Home Depot store, and also picked up some welding pliers. And previously I picked up some MIG gloves, that is some welding gloves. And I got my boots ready to accept and any slag that might fall on my boots. And I'm just geared up and ready to go, man. I'm all ready to do that welding and get that welding done. And I've got 17 weeks of welding practice coming up, where I get to, I don't know, chase the bead or whatever the terminology is when I weld. And anyway, I'm excited about it. So, and that, not only that, but I've got a welding class coming up day after, a yoga class coming up day after tomorrow. My last yoga class a week ago went spectacularly well. I really enjoyed my time there. I learned that it's a welding is, yoga is kind of a very structured way to stretch, and it's very relaxing. Um, there's quite often music in the background. There's an instructor who's very experienced and qualified to help the student through the poses. And I think I'm going to really like yoga a lot. And I am definitely, I figured out what my costume was going to be. I basically have some black pants and a black shirt that I wear. And oh, that just reminds me, I need to get a yoga mat. Okay, Google, put a yoga mat on the shopping list.
Okay, I've added a yoga mat to your shopping list.
Oh man, I'm glad I had this conversation with you, because it's going to be nice to get that yoga mat worked out. And anyway, let's see what else is going on in my life. So I got my classes. I got the MacBook Pro. I mean, that's a lot right there. I'm gonna try. I was thinking about trying to work out every day this week. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Basically, I've been working out about 3 days a week, and that's been working fine for me. But I have been getting a hankering to work out more days per week. We'll see. Sometimes I work out 4 days a week, and I think it's just a matter of accepting that kind of change. On another subject, something I've been doing lately is a modified time blocking for productivity. I've been timing my tasks throughout the day using stopwatches. And so, for example, I take a 5-minute shower in the morning. Now, I used to take showers that were like 10 and 15 minutes, and I might have even taken one 20-minute shower in the past. Now, I love showers, and showers are wonderful, but they tend to eat up a lot of time for me. I also tend to get lost in thought and sort of forget that I'm in the shower at all. It's like a meditation session. And I want to put a stop to that. I mean, I really love it, and I think on occasion that's a wonderful idea to sort of laze around in the shower. But I think on the daily basis, it's not very good from an energy conservation standpoint. And my skin probably is not so happy about suffering through that much hot water and soap. So what I'm doing now is I've established 5 minutes as being a reasonable time to take a shower in. And before I hop in, I will start the timer. And I've got this really awesome meditation timer that I use on my smartphone, and it rings a bell every minute for 5 minutes. And then there's an ending bell, and it's the bell sounds different than the interim bells. And I'm able to take a shower in like 5 minutes or less. I'm taking about 4-minute showers right now. I'm beating my 5 minute goal. And let me tell you, I'm really loving it. And today, interestingly, I timed my breakfast for the first time. I don't really make a habit of timing my meals, but I did. And I found that I could eat my meal and do the dishes after breakfast. And it was no sweat. And here's the thing. The idea of having breakfast and then doing the dishes afterwards, for me, it doesn't happen that often. I'll just be honest for you. It doesn't happen that often. I tend to leave the dishes in the sink and do the dishes at a later date, right? When it's a little more convenient to do the dishes. I mean, that makes sense, right? It certainly does. Well, this timed breakfast and timed dishes session right after that, I really got a lot of joy and pleasure out of doing that. I didn't struggle at all with the breakfast. I didn't struggle at all with the dishes. It was a joy. And in fact, it makes me excited about the future. I'm thinking about timing my breakfast and timing my dishwashing and getting the whole thing done in like 20 minutes. I mean, that's phenomenal, truly phenomenal. And I'm just so excited about it. It's an using time effectively. So here's the thing. In the world, there's really no resource that is as valuable as time. No resource is valuable. And so the question is, how do I utilize time in a way that makes me a king of this dimension of time and space? How can I be an awesome time traveler and travel into the future with style, getting the things done that I want to get done, and having fun in the process? In a way, this is like gamifying life. Gamifying life is, when you've sort of attached time or points and maybe even make it a little challenge when you get stuff done and get things done, I don't know. I think it's fun. There's something about making life challenging in that way that sparks my interest. I'm not sure what it is, but it's like establishing goals in the morning and then accomplishing those goals. Basically, I feel this gratitude. It's just an intense gratitude for completing a task in a time efficient way, doing it well, getting it complete. I think that speaks to my virtues, virtue of self-discipline, self-control, self-regulation. And, I'm proud. Basically, it's pride, right? I'm proud of my behavior. I'm proud of my activity. I'm proud that I was so efficient and effective in the world. And what it does too is I get the benefit of freedom of having time afterwards, right? I mean, if my meal and washing the dishes after my meal only takes 20 minutes, then that frees up the rest of the hour to do interesting stuff, right? I could play video games or surf the internet or work on my memojis, right? Or read a book or clean up the car or do something else. I could take care of my needs, right? And I could do something that's exciting and interesting and entertaining for me. Who knows? Maybe it's surfing the internet or reading the news or processing mail. And so I don't know. I just feel effective and I feel stronger. I feel like a Superman when I time my day, right? When I have my time, when I have my day all scheduled out and I've got my to-do list and I've got the things that it's just a really creative process. It's creative and fun. And I get so much benefit from it. I mean, it's just, wow, I just feel good. I feel good. I feel like I'm doing things right and I'm feeling strong and effective in the world. I don't know. I don't think there's a feeling that can match it. So I'm thinking that I'm going to be doing this more often. I'm going to start scheduling things in my day, doing some time blocking or Pomodoro technique all throughout the day. It's really less time blocking and more Pomodoro technique. It's powerful. This Pomodoro technique is really powerful, where you set aside some time to accomplish a task. And during the task, you are focused like a laser on the task, right? So there are fewer distractions. In fact, it gives me permission to dismiss interruptions or distractions that occur to me. My mind is more focused. I'm actually focused on the task at hand and less focused on, say, meditating on negative thinking or any kind of thinking at all. I'm just caught up in doing. And I don't know. There's a lot of satisfaction. There's a satisfaction about my external situation, a satisfaction about my own behavior and the standards that I'm meeting, the virtues that I'm exercising, the strengths that I'm exercising in my personality. I mean, it's all around, it's all together joy, you know, it's just joy, continuous joy. And I love it. I love it. It makes life interesting. And I feel like I feel like I'm on the right track, right? And gosh, I do. So anyway, that's a real strong source of joy in my life. And that's what I really like. It's what I want more of throughout my day. In fact, even now I'm considering, okay, what parts of my workday can I time? Like certain tasks, like checking the mail, or I don't know, being on a telecon, or it's kind of funny. Things that are timed have value, right? There's some kind of value that's associated with a thing that's timed because of maybe scarcity related to that behavior or that process. It's only going to take place for a certain amount of time. Anyway, I'm glad that I live in the technological age when it's no sweat to time myself and during the day, and I've got smartphones and other electronic gadgets to make it happen. So I feel really fortunate that I can experience and enjoy this kind of life. In a way, it's like carrying a kitchen timer around with me all the time and then doing this Pomodoro technique. I don't know, I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Yeah, there's a lot to be satisfied about. So let's see what else is going on. Okay, so I'm 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 moving through books quite readily. This morning I read again, which is my habit, for 30 minutes. And in fact, I've been thinking that I want to extend that to maybe even an hour. Maybe I'll read in the evenings or something like that. Read when I just when I wake up in the morning, and read just before I go to bed. Um, but so I've been reading a lot of books lately, and I've been getting through them and finishing them. One of the books that I've read is another book by MJ Ryan. If you recall, I sent you a book called Attitudes of Gratitude. Well, she's got another book called Attitudes of Gratitude in Love. And basically, it's about love relationships and friendships, and how to make the most of them. And I read this book a while back. And while I read it, of course, I highlighted important ideas in it. And I figured that what I might do is share some of my highlights with you. And I've got my highlights here on my Kindle on my smartphone. And I figured we'd go through this book, Attitudes of Gratitude in Love, and go through the highlights that I thought were notable. And so on page 5, I highlighted this note, this passage. It says, increasingly, those who study human systems are doing work that shows the more you look at what's right instead of what's wrong, the more change actually occurs. Impasses break up, new insights arise, and the energy begins to move in a positive direction. Conversely, when you focus on what's wrong, you tend to dig yourself into a bigger hole. And I think that that is totally correct. A focus on what's wrong is often a focus on the past, right? It's what somebody did or what I did. It's in the past, and it's also in the imagined past, right? Something happened according to your own narrative, to your own story. It happened in the past. And, you can't really change the past. It's fixed, right? And the only thing that a person can do about the past is to accept it, right? Or maybe to reframe it somehow. And maybe to understand it and learn it. But the past is unchangeable. There's nothing you can do about it. It's history and it's fixed. And, I think when someone thinks about the past or what went wrong in the past, it gets kind of dreary, right? Kind of negative, right? It's particularly if it's something that was terribly wrong and you're having a hard time reframing it. Um, it might be a better strategy to focus more on the present and the future. At least in the present, you can make changes. And in the future, you can act in ways that will change it. And so it's empowering. It's actually more empowering because I can do something about it. I can do something about the present. I can do something about the past. But I mean, about the future. But I can't do anything about the past. And so, yeah. And, thinking about what's right, I guess you could also think about what's right in the past, right? But a lot of people don't. A lot of the time we're thinking about the problems and the issues of concern. I like the idea of thinking about what happened that was right about the past, and what happened, what could be, what I could ask for more of in the present or in the future. Yeah, yeah. So let me read that passage again. She says, increasingly, those who study human systems are doing work that shows that the more you look at what's right instead of what's wrong, the more change actually occurs. Impasses break up, new insights arise, and the energy begins to move in a positive direction. I know why that energy moves in a positive direction is because a person is hopeful about sort of receiving an award or a reward, right? Which is the pleasure of accomplishment, right? The pleasure of doing something right. And wow, that sure does sound better to me than sort of dwelling on the past and what's wrong about the past. At least when you're thinking about the future, you can strive to hit goals, right? You can gamify whatever future event is happening in the future, and you can receive behavior points, right? When you get closer to meeting your goal. And I mean, that just sounds so much better. Of course, you could also dwell in the past and think about what happened right in the past too. It's so funny how it's so rare how people dream about what happened right in the that dream about the things that happened right in the past. You know, although I like to do it, I call it reminiscing. And, quite often that means to me thinking about the past in glowing terms. And I love to do that. That's a pastime. It's kind of like daydreaming, but, daydreaming, I guess, could be about the present, the future, or the past, right? In fact, daydreaming can also be about imagined states. Yeah. So, anyway, I thought that was a really interesting passage. Another passage in this book by M.J. Ryan, Attitudes of Gratitude in Love, is this. It's on page 8. It says, an attitude of gratitude will not solve all problems. No one thing could ever do that, but it can make all problems more manageable. Yeah, it's about making life more manageable. And, how rare is it to actually solve a problem? Problems are there for a reason. They exist for a reason. And, you know, there's a lot about a problem that is you just can't change, right? Sometimes it's other people, right? You can't change other people. Sometimes it's systems around you, like systems of bureaucratic process or organizational process, or problems related to society or government. You can't really, you're sort of really distanced from these things, and in a way you just can't solve them. And the same is true with like health problems. you know you can manage them quite often, but you often can't solve them. A lot of the real problems in life, like the chronic diseases, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure. These things take time to solve. They're not solved overnight. And, all continuously dwelling on the problem can be a real downer in terms of making your attitude more blue and sad, you know. Having a strong fix on problems, I don't know, that doesn't necessarily do you much good in terms of, say, your energy level or your motivation. Sure, there are ways to consider problems as things you want to avoid, and that you can avoid the pain and avoid the pain of the problems around you. But wouldn't it be nicer to sort of use a little more positive feedback? I know. I would definitely love to, think more positive ideas and use those ideas to make me happier throughout the day. All right. So the next highlight is on page 12, where I highlighted this. Gratefulness creates kindness in feeling, which in turn generates more love. And isn't that what we all truly want? So, yeah, the most grateful people. In fact, what I'm recognizing when I consider the past is that the things that I find most pleasurable are other people feeling grateful for me, maybe grateful for things that I've done for them, people feeling grateful for their own lives, people feeling grateful for others. It's the happiest I've ever been is observing others in just ecstatic gratitude. That it just when I see other people express gratitude to themselves and others, it just warms my heart. It just makes me happy. I feel happy when I watch another person express thankfulness and gratitude. When it moves them, particularly when it moves them strongly, maybe they're moved to tears. Maybe they have sincere gestures that they express. And it moves me too. I've got mirror neurons in my brain. And so, I can feel when other people are expressing gratitude, I can feel that gratitude too. I sort of vibrate with resonance around others who are appreciating the world that they live in. In a way, it's like a lesson. They're my teacher. They're my teacher. This is how I'm supposed to be. I can almost. It's almost an intuitive knowing. That is, when I notice another person feeling grateful and being grateful for the things around them, I'm happy. I become happy inside, and I want to use them as a role model for my own life. The question I ask is, what if I could be that grateful? You know? And you know what? It turns out that there are a lot of things that are kinds of gratefulness. Thankfulness is gratefulness. Love is a kind of gratefulness. It's like when you appreciate another person, right? Their character, their behavior, their appearance, perhaps, the way they dress, you know? Um, it's almost as if what I love most in the world is gratefulness. Think about like birthday parties. What I love about birthday parties is this sense of celebration, right? And what is celebration then? Just gratitude, right? Gratitude for having achieved a certain age or graduated from high school or college. That's all about appreciation. That's all gratitude. All celebration is just gratitude. It's just the way that you celebrate, right? You could celebrate with lights, you could celebrate with exercise, you could celebrate with birthday cake. There are a lot of ways to sort of express gratitude and to engage in celebration. Like I go to celebrate. I go to amusement parks. A lot of people go to Disneyland, right? The happiest place on earth. When something great has happened, let's say you um, win the Super Bowl. A lot of people, when they're interviewed, when you ask them, "What do you plan to do now?" One of the standard answers that they want to go to Disneyland to celebrate, right? It's basically a reward, rewarding yourself. And different people have different preferences about what rewards that they like to use for themselves. Like some people eat a big pizza or eat donuts as reward, or some people exercise as reward. Some people go to amusement parks as reward. You know, it's all about a kind of celebration. It's about, you know, it's really about enjoying life. Gratitude is sort of a recognition of how you're enjoying life. It is enjoying life in itself. So these days I'm really beginning to realize just how powerful and important gratitude is, and how it permeates this. Gratitude is a word that describes a seeking out of the good feelings, right? And in a way, everything that inspires good feelings is a kind of gratitude. Love is gratitude for another romantic partner. Celebration is quite often gratitude for reaching milestones. Um, and that's what I seek too. When people seek like romantic lovers or anything, they're looking for people who feel grateful about themselves and others. Um, in fact, that's really what a romantic lover is. It's a person who appreciates you, right? Is grateful to have you around and is excited about having you in their lives. That's what a romantic partner is. It's a person who, expresses themselves, expresses the joy of when they are around you, and they make it known, like, oh yeah, that's what people want. That's what they're looking for in a romantic partner. Because people have mirror neurons, and they're looking to feel that exact kind of gratitude for another person. It's sort of like a mutual celebration. It's a mutual thankfulness when two people are in romantic relationship. And they could be in a friendship too and still be thankful and grateful for the relationship as it is. In fact, quite often, loving gestures, like Valentine's Day is coming up soon, these loving gestures are expressions of gratitude for the other person. It's like, it's the quite often these gifts just bubble up. You want to do things for them. You want to express how you feel about them through words, through acts of service, through quality time. It's these 5 love languages, right? You want to express how much you love that other person through touch. And that inspires the other person to love you, right? So it's like a feedback loop. There's love and appreciation in this direction, and that generates love and appreciation in that direction. And it just it's an ever expanding and rising loop. It's a feedback loop. It's a positive feedback loop. And I could see how it can just be ecstatic, you know you know yeah, that's what it is. And that love, which is cool, is that quite often that love from a romantic partner, mirrors, helps you with um connecting with other people. Really, it is all just about gratitude. Man, to me, this is a huge insight, because what it tells me is it really gives you a really strong guideline about how to love other people and what to look for when they're loving you. And it also gives an indicator of how limitless love can be, and that in terms of generating really happy feelings. Yeah. um, you just all it takes is to find a partner really who sort of acknowledges and recognizes this pattern of behavior. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the next passage. This is passage number, oh, I don't know what number it is, but it's on page 32 of the book Attitudes of Gratitudes and Love, where it states, which is to offer the kind of genuine praise and appreciation that conveys that I fundamentally accept him for who he is. So, one big part of love is just this idea of unconditional acceptance. Basically, you want to guarantee. You want to guarantee that this other person will continue to accept you, even in the face of challenges, right? Sometimes other people's behavior just, well, it's not what we expect. Sometimes it's not what we want to have for ourselves or for them. And it's sort of like a guarantee. And it's basically an agreement, right? It's sort of like a contract. This idea of acceptance, particularly unconditional acceptance, is kind of like a contract. It's like, I have made the decision to appreciate you for the things that I can appreciate in you for. It is kind of like an agreement, a contract. It's like long lasting, right? Yeah. And it's really nice to have that. It's really nice to sort of be the subject of genuine praise and appreciation. What's kind of funny too is that heaping praise on another person also feels good. So I'm sorry about my nose here. I got like a little running nose or something. I don't know what it's all about. Just a morning nose. But what's great is that not only does it feel wonderful to accept genuine praise and appreciation, but it also feels good to express it to other people, right? I feel wonderful. There's goodness. I'm basically in my mind, I'm just sort of expressing this goodness. It feels good, right? It's part of how I am become happy. It's a way to become happy, and that is to do more expressions of gratitude and love. And so, wow, how wonderful. I mean, this is like the perfect setup, right? Having a wonderful relationship is with, and it could be with friends or lovers or with family. A lot of it is sort of like there's this mutuality, right? So you get benefits from receiving appreciation, and you get benefits from giving appreciation. Those good feelings are amplified, you know particularly if it's, and that can be true in a group too. It can be true in a group setting. Lots of people heaping appreciation on everyone else. Wow, that sounds like amazingness. Yeah, and I can just see how it can just become like ecstatic. Yeah. And wow, how wonderful is that? So That's so good. Essentially, what you're doing is you're sharing what you appreciate and enjoy with other people, right? You're not keeping it a secret. You're not holding back, right? And you're expressing yourself. And it's a joy to express yourself. It's also a joy to hear these expressions of joy from other people. So, anyway, all right. So, what's the next highlight that I had? So, on page 34, I highlighted another passage, and this is what it says. It says, "That's because resentment is negative case building. You always do this, and you know I hate it. I'm always the one who has to blank. You never remember to blank. Resentment is a condition that's created by our paying attention to how much we've been used and put upon. Gratitude, on the other hand, is created by looking at how much we've been given. The two are mutually exclusive." Yeah. It's one is focusing on lack, the other one is focusing on abundance, right? And I like this idea about resentment being negative case building. This negative case building, you're basically building a narrative, right? Building a story about all the terrible things related to other people. And, and then you memorize and remember all these terrible things. And, it just puts everyone in a low mood, right? And quite often there's this hopelessness, right, about it. Like, so since a lot of these things happened in the past and that narrative has been built and is fixed, it's just, you're sort of moving through like a morass of painful ideas. And yeah, that sounds like a real downer. And it's the funny thing is, I know a number of people who do this negative case building. They're always thinking about what's bad about a situation. Now, I know that some of them, they try to sort of what they call balance it out, right? They'll describe a good thing about somebody and then a bad thing to balance it out, right? Like there's got to be this one-to-one balance. Like, oh, that's fair. That's equal. So long as there's one-to-one appreciation for what's good and depreciation for what's bad, that everything's okay, right? But I don't think it's even that good necessarily. This negative case building, I think, probably just needs to go away. Because here's the thing. I mean, you can acknowledge the bad, say, in a neutral way. You could acknowledge all these things like, this is the way it is. You might describe it, instead of describing it as, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, you can just describe it neutrally, saying, this is the way it is. I mean, let me tell you, you can do that. In life, you don't necessarily have to exaggerate the bad. Minimizing the bad is probably a better strategy for long-term survival. Unless, of course, that bad has an impact on your health and safety. Then it makes sense to emphasize it. But most of the time, I think it makes sense to sort of focus on, say, the potentially bad things in a neutral way, and then think about how you can make your future better, right? What is the positive opposite of the bad thing that's happening? So let's say I have a tendency to get angry or something. Well, what's the positive of that? Positive opposite of that? Well, it's the happiness outbursts of celebration, right? And then ask yourself, well, you might want to ask yourself, when it comes to celebration, what kind of values does that celebration meet in your life? And then how can you achieve those values more often? I like this idea of the positive opposite. Sometimes when we consider negative things or bad things or displeasurable things happening around us, we don't necessarily see clearly what the positive opposite is. And so we don't advocate for the positive opposite. All of our attention is on the negative. And, even if we focus on the negative with the intent to solve the problem, right? If we are continuously focusing on the negative, what happens is we find more problems. Because our brain that's where we're putting our energy into, and that is focusing on the negative. And who wants that? It's like there's like two dogs, feeding the negative attitude dog instead of the positive attitude dog. You just don't want to put your energy there. Okay, so what's the next highlight? So the next highlight I have is on page 36 of the book, and this is the passage I highlighted. It says, gratitude is a feeling of fullness, a recognition of the heart of what we are receiving in this moment. It is not a wish or hope for the future. So I think this is impactful too. Gratitude quite often is about appreciating what we have. Sometimes the benefits that we have are subtle, right? We're blind to them. We don't acknowledge them. They're invisible. And, there might be some appreciation, but we just don't focus on it. Taking a shower is a good example. Like I take a shower every morning and I enjoy it. But here's the thing. I receive benefits, right? I receive real benefits. I receive like a warm massage. I just sort of feel cleaner, and it's relaxing, right? My muscles are relaxed because of the warmth and the heat. I feel safe. And, I think it's recognizing that is gratitude, right? Gratitude is about the action of seeking out the good feelings and maybe even amplifying them if you can. And then seeking out more good feelings in the future. But you're right, it's about awareness, right? Attention about what's really happening in the present moment. That's an important practice. All too easy to dismiss those feelings. And, if you dismiss them and you don't acknowledge them, then newsflash, they're not going to be happening in your life. What you dismiss is itself a tragedy, right? It's a loss, particularly if you're dismissing the good things in your life, right? These are losses that you're taking that you don't have to take, right? It's basically you're sort of traveling through life in an unconscious way. And, the key is to make these good feelings new again by sort of acknowledging them and expressing them. Like one idea, one thing that a lot of people ignore is just the strength and enjoyment of being alive in their body, right? The energy of their muscles and the resistance of their bones and tendons. And, in that itself is pleasure. It's an unspoken pleasure, just the pleasure of being quite often. But it's a pleasure that's continuous, right? I love to flex my muscles as much as anybody else does, right? To stretch and relax. And, it's a subtle part of being alive. It's a subtle joy, right? That isn't often expressed. And it's a joy that we could acknowledge every moment of our lives, but quite often don't. We're quite often unconscious as we travel through life. And that itself is a tragedy. I mean, imagine what could be more tragic than a person who's got $1 billion, right, in their pocket, but they don't acknowledge it, right? They're unconscious of the value that's in their back pocket. They may have it, but if they never think about it, just think about the potential that has been lost, right? I was reflecting the other day about my hands and arms and legs and feet and eyes and nose. How much money would I exchange, say, an arm for? Would I exchange it for $1 million? No, I wouldn't. My arm is more valuable to me than $1 million. And yet we have this value, and quite often we just do not appreciate it. We do not appreciate having the value of a functioning arm and a functioning hand. I mean, this is a treasure right here. The joy that it brings me is like infinite. I'm serious. It's continual joy. The joy that I have of having an arm, even a voice, right? I use it all throughout the day. And what a gift it is to have a voice that I can use. A lot of people don't have pleasant voices to listen to. A lot of people don't have the ability to speak in a way that's other people are willing and wanting to listen. You know, that's called downward comparison. Downward comparison is a great way of propping you up. Just consider those who are less fortunate, and that's a great way to help you feel better about the world. you know, um, you know, that's also actually kind of an argument for living in like a lower class neighborhood. If you're middle class, say, um, you look around you and say, hey, I'm doing pretty well. Now, if I lived in an upper class neighborhood and I was a middle class person, um, that could be uh, a way of, well, living a very torturous life. That's when you're sort of trying to keep up with the Joneses and struggling to keep up appearances. That's that's a challenge. I wouldn't necessarily wish that upon anyone. So it's really a good idea to live in neighborhoods that um, live around people who are just not doing as well as you are. Hey, that's just a strategy for living a happier life. It's one of many, but there are other ways to do it, of course. I mean, you could there. It depends on what you consider, rather. What's valuable to you, what's in your basket of values. If you're very poor and you happen to live in a high class, upper class neighborhood, what you might do is, instead of focusing on money, is focus on character, right? And make your judgments based on that. If that's what your focus is, focus on, and I can imagine a person really excelling in that area. Maybe they've got a sparkling personality, and that, from a basket of values perspective, that's where they focus their time and energy of comparison on. you know you know anyway, that's good. I wonder what the next passage is. So the next passage that I highlighted is on page 36. The passage reads like this. It says, however, I do believe that the more we offer our appreciation for what we have in our relationship, the more we're likely to get. Yeah, absolutely. So why are people inclined to give to other people in their relationship? Why are they inclined to give? Well, They're inclined to give because they are receiving, right? They recognize that they are receiving something, and they want to give their love in exchange. It's they want to become part of the joy. So really, the more that we offer, the more that can be given to us. And quite often, that's the way it works. Yeah. And that's why it's why generosity is so important, is that other people want to mirror that generosity, and you could be the source of, you can be receiving the generosity of others. Yeah. You can receive the generosity of others. It sets you up for receiving the generosity of others. So being generous to other people sets you up for other people being generous to you. Wow. There are a lot of ways to be generous to other people. Reaching out to other people, um, through communications, through letters, through text messages. Um, Anytime you're in conversation with another person, a person expressing that appreciation, people just want to give to you when they received something from you generously. Yeah. How wonderful is that? Like I said, it starts this really massive positive feedback loop. So what's the next passage? The next passage is my highlight on page number 36 of the book. And the passage says, that's because whatever we focus on tends to multiply. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, whatever we focus on tends to multiply. Uh, and and that is definitely true. So the question really is, what are you focusing on? Question is, what am I focusing on? What do I spend a lot of time focusing on? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to try to do some productivity work today, and I'm going to try to focus on that. And I'm also going to try to enjoy every moment, and then also express gratitude to others. All right. So, I'm going to wrap this up right now. I want to say thank you for spending this time with me, and I really appreciate you in my life. I'm excited about our future and hopeful about our future together. And I am just continuously looking for ways to reach out to you and connect with you. And I hope you notice that. And I don't know, it makes me happy to know that you're in my life and that you're happy and healthy and living in a peaceful way in a great city, getting a great education with great family all around you. I mean, come on. What a joyful way to live. I'll talk to you later, girl. I love you.